僕ですか?
Welcome to Ultra Gaiden, a spin-off of Ultra Retrospective where I take a look at shows and movies with a tangential connection to the Ultraman franchise. You've read the title, you know what movie this is. Let's get this clip out of the way. The Godzilla series turns 70 this year, and it's got 38 films to show for it. So why are we talking about this one? Well, anyone with a passing knowledge of Godzilla lore knows that his co-star in this one is Jet Jaguar, Toho's cinematic answer to Ultraman. I say cinematic because they were currently airing the show Go Godman on television, so Jet wasn't Toho's first superhero. He also wouldn't be their last. Jet was entering a crowded marketplace. If you haven't seen my other videos, there's a reason why a disproportionate number of them cover shows from the early 70s. This was the peak of what's called the Henshin boom. Where a number of transforming superheroes inspired by Ultraman and Kamen Rider started popping up, and Jet Jaguar was no exception. More on how he came to be later. I'll be upfront, this video might be a little redundant. A lot of YouTubers have talked about Godzilla vs. Megalon already, so the horse is long dead. I eventually figured, screw it, it's my video. I can say what I want as long as it's within YouTube's terms and services, and I need a break from working on videos about 50-episode behemoths. This is also one of my favorite Godzilla movies, so I had to talk about it eventually.
This is what happened.
Goro, his little brother Rokuro, and his best friend Hiroshi are this film's main characters. I mean, they're on screen for most of the movie, and Goro was the one who built the film's co-star, but they're very flat. Hiroshi doesn't have much of a personality outside of liking cars.
But as far as I'm concerned, it's got right of way.
Oh yeah, forgot to mention, I always watch this movie dubbed because it's funny.
It would be funny if the earthquakes destroyed your robot. Hilarious.
I like these Hong Kong dubs because they call him Godzilla.
Get Godzilla. You'll find him on Monster Island.
Rokuro is pretty unlistenable though. He's the only part of this dub I'd say is genuinely awful.
Jaguar! What are we going to do? I reckon they mean to kill us.
13 movies deep, the Godzilla series has gotten pretty comfortable with invading forces acting as antagonists. So the villains this time around are the Seatopians, an underground civilization whose Caucasian emperor sicks their giant bug god Megalon on the surface. Megalon is a bit of a dum-dum. He needs someone to point him in the direction of things to smash. So the Seatopians steal Jet Jaguar and have him do just that. Goro eventually frees Jet of the Seatopians' control. He then recruits Godzilla, who's just hanging out, and the two of them team up to fight Megalon and his new partner Gaiden, who previously appeared in the last movie. Bada bing, bada boom. Jet and Goji shake and agree to never speak of this again. A promise that was kept because this was Jet's final cinematic role. Cue the theme song. It's Masato Shimon again. He sung the theme song to just about every superhero who, with the exception of Hawaiian Ultra 7, wasn't Ultraman. And, Disco Star Wars, I guess. Yeah, this is one of those Godzilla movies where the characters are just going through the motions of the story. The movie spends an entire hour with these characters, so you'd think they'd have something to do for the finale, but really, the last 20 minutes just belong to the monsters. The human characters just stand there and watch.
We need to have robots in order to build up an army, and we don't have the time to invent them.
Oh yeah? You mean you're too dumb?
The pacing for this one is all over the place. Sequences like the lake draining feel like they go on far longer than they need to, but the revelation that there's an entire race of Toga people living underground worshipping Easter Island heads comes at the viewer like a missile. See, that I like. That's weird. It's kind of bad filmmaking, but it's fun.
Looks like fun. Wanna try? Yeah, why not?
The plot is simple, and many of its set pieces feel like they were decided on the fly, mainly to fill time. But every time I look up something about how this movie was made, there's a weird contradiction. For example, it was infamously shot in less than 3 weeks, but it spent 6 months in pre-production. I guess that is fairly normal now that I think about it, but apparently a lot of that pre-production time was spent just sitting there, waiting for something to happen. The wonky pacing feels like a result of set pieces being decided on the fly, but according to Steve Reifel and Stuart Galbraith's commentary track, the filmmakers had the foresight to plan out the stock footage they were going to use, suggesting a level of efficiency in the filmmaking, which isn't seen in other areas.
Go to hell!
The Godzilla movies of the 70s were taking a lot of budgetary shortcuts. The monsters were getting more creative, but the movies were getting cheaper. Entire sequences are built out of footage from other movies, and the Godzilla suits were being used until they fell apart. They were premiering at Toho's Champions Film Festival, the same place where older Godzilla movies got re-edited to hold attentions of younger and younger audiences, now used to the faster-paced television shows of the time. Consequently, Godzilla vs. Megalon has the spirit of a television production. It was just shot on a wider aspect ratio. Gaiden and Megalon are some of the more outlandish monster designs in this series, so a movie that ends with the two of them going at a giant silver superhero, one of the fastest wrestling matches the franchise has seen yet, really makes this feel spiritually in tune with Ultraman. The production values, from the extensive use of stock footage to the smaller central cast, really makes this feel more like a television production too. Even the premise feels like something straight out of an episodic television series. Ultraman has had several stories about invading underground races that are mentioned once, then never again. This wasn't even the first Toho movie with an underground civilization from the continent of Mu. Atragon beat this by 10 years. Though in fairness, Shinichi Sekizawa came up with the concept for that too. Most of those shortcuts allowed the special effects crew time to produce what's one of the more impressive set pieces in a Godzilla film, the scene where Megalon destroys a dam. It looks great, and I love the detail of Megalon getting swept up in the water. It reinforces that he's still at the whims of natural physics. And also that he's a moron. The franchise was already pretty comfortable with portraying the monsters with personalities, but I think here is where they got the most cartoonish, which was for the best. I've always loved how the gruesome twosome here were characterized. Geigen's a sadistic coward, and Megalon is a dumbass who needs someone to lead him around. The first thing he does when he gets to the surface is ask for uppies, and from there he just can't do anything himself. Megalon is like an angry, dumb kid. It's totally at odds with him being a revered god. I love his little hops. Let's talk about Godzilla. If there's one thing that's unified designs of the past and future, it's that they look mean. Goji almost always has that furrowed brow and glare, which is something the Megaro Goji suit, as it's called, doesn't have. He's got raised eyebrows, and he looks friendly. This was a symptom of the franchise now being aimed directly at a younger audience. It was like this before, but this was the first look for the monster to really reflect that direction. I'm actually kind of fond of this design. It's weirdly cute. The eyes look a little more psychotic, like he spent one too many nights awake. He probably did, knowing this movie's shooting schedule. But the overall look here has always stood out, and they iterated on it for the next two movies. It's good stuff. Godzilla keeps morphing into the suit from the last movie though, again because of this movie's use of stock footage. He does a lot of shape-shifting in this movie, actually. It wouldn't be so obvious if the new suit wasn't fundamentally different from every single one that came before it. He's a sweet guy now. Whenever it cuts back to his angrier days, it's just jarring. His behavior in this one is pretty different too. The first time we see Godzilla after the opening is this hard cut to him 40 minutes in. He's standing in front of a sky background, which is supposed to be Monster Island, and he's got his hands like this. Was he pondering the state of things? Maybe he was the thinking animal all along.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force, while Kong is a thinking animal.
There was a push starting from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster to steer the character away from his dark nuclear origins, spearheaded mainly by Eiji Tsuburaya having him do goofy stuff like playing rock volleyball, getting blasted in the nuts, and doing an internet meme. I think what cemented it was Godzilla doing a specium pose a couple movies ago. He had fully blossomed into a silly superhero. He was appearing on game shows and throwing peace signs. Yeah, f*** it, why not? Godzilla's an Ultraman-like now too. He henchened from a blunt metaphor for the atomic bomb into a hero. There's this great scene that I usually think about in relation to this movie where Gaiden and Megalon trap the dynamic duo in a ring of fire. The music and quick cutting is highlighting the desperation. When Jet and Goji escape, I love the little "aw, come on" the bad guys do. This whole scene is a great encapsulation of what makes the monster personalities so entertaining in this movie. It's awesome. Say what you will about whether this movie represents the right direction for the series, but I find the way it characterizes the monsters genuinely entertaining. But what about Jet Jaguar? He's the whole reason I'm able to look at this movie after all. I don't know where to start with this guy. He's simultaneously a very transparent attempt to ride off the Kyodai hero trend, yet very much his own weird fun thing. The bright garish colors, the goofy smile. I don't know if it's because of how long I've been in the trenches and have just gotten used to how these heroes usually look, but Jet Jaguar might be the goofiest of them all. Really, Jet's a combination of tropes. He's basically Kakaider with less personality, a little bit of Ultraman, and an ugly smile, which, if Teruyoshi Nakano is to be believed, was done on purpose. Jet Jaguar learned how to change his size at some point. That wasn't initially programmed into him. Depending on the version of the movie you're watching, he did this either by reprogramming himself or just having the willpower to do so.
I guess he realized he had to hold the monster somehow. So he just programmed himself in some way to increase his own size.
Again, this movie is batshit insane. It's a well-known fact that Jet was designed by a kid for a contest, and even that's only half true. A kid submitted this design. It was named Red Alone, and that got adapted and morphed into the design we have today, completely unrecognizable outside of the color scheme. The Red Alone name seemed to stick late into development because I've got this poster where he refers to himself by that. That's kinda fucked up, right? Toho went behind the kid's back and redesigned his monster to piggyback off the Kyodai hero trend. Then some unidentified goofball undermines the whole effort by making it look bad on purpose. Yeah, we have that interview with Nakano saying that it was designed to be obnoxious on purpose, but we don't actually have a name to attach this design to. They wanted to be uncredited.
Jet Jaguar, eh? Not bad.
I wonder where that kid is now. Are they aware of Jag's meteoric rise to stardom? The world may never know. As simple as this movie is, in some sense it does still tie back to the nuclear origins of the franchise. It was underground nuclear tests that made the Seatopians angry in the first place, and those tests also caused Monster Island to sink into the ocean. Part of it, at least. I can't tell because most of it is stock footage. The point is that we're seeing nuclear weapons still have consequences. They're what start the whole movie. That's really as far as the theme goes, though. The Seatopians eventually get beaten back, and they never announced to the world what their intentions were. Nobody except the main characters and the military know why Megalon showed up or why he attacked. As far as we know, nobody learned anything, outside of the power of friendship. Yeah, that's the real message. Godzilla and Jet become friends, Gaiden and Megalon hit it off pretty well, Hiroshi and Goro are really close friends. Yeah, sure, that's the theme, friendship. I'll never get another opportunity to say it. I don't make videos hyperfixating on single Godzilla movies often, but I think Jun Fukuda is the franchise's most eclectic director. From Ebirah Horror of the Deep and Geigen's entertaining human ensembles to Mechagodzilla's bizarre ideas and sequences, I think he made some of the most memorable movies of the Showa era. Even Honda's felt very samey after a while. Meanwhile, with Fukuda, anything goes. What I'm saying is that all of Fukuda's movies feel very different from one another, and I think that's something to value. He notoriously hated his work for the Godzilla series. He's one of those guys who thinks the 1954 original is the only valid one, but he led the charge during Godzilla's cheap era, and I can't say it's not entertaining. Megalon is no exception. This is generally considered one of the worst Godzilla movies by articles parroting what historians say. And yeah, it has one of the most plain-bred human casts in the whole series. The pacing is inconsistent, and it's all an excuse to get to a monster fight. But I think the whole movie has this endearing quality to it. It's so transparently slapdash. The monsters are goofy and fun. The soundtrack is a nightmare. It's lame, it's eccentric, it's awesome. I'm always asking questions when I watch this movie. It might just be one of the franchise's most enjoyably weird. When I call Godzilla vs. Megalon schlock, I mean it in the most loving, unpretentious way possible. Compared to other one-off attempts at Ultraman-likes from the early 70s, Jet Jaguar has actually been in a lot more side material in the past couple decades, ranging from video games to starring roles in anime like Godzilla Singular Point. What started as an April Fool's joke about Jet getting his own anime turned into him being prominently featured in a Godzilla anime. Toho's given him a lot of love. Jet finally returned to form in a short film last year, and it's probably the best anniversary short yet. He's going to be in the next one too, which should be out by the time this video goes up, so I'm looking forward to that. Too much powerful, really? That's the translation we're going with? Okay. I'm content with Jet continuing to be in these side projects. His legacy as a character is more interesting in the context of him only appearing in one movie. He's the Godzilla series' cryptid, appearing once, then never being mentioned in the movies again. What I'm saying is that MonsterVerse Jaguar would be too predictable. I mean, I wouldn't object, it seems like they're gearing up for more giant robots. Shitty looking ones, but still, they're gearing up for more giant robots. It somehow feels better this way, him having a starring role in one of the franchise's weirdest, most memorable entries. This is how it should be. As for Godzilla, he went on to appear in nothing of note, and he languishes in obscurity to this very day. I joke, but that's kind of what happened to Megalon. Of course he appears in side material, but it's saying something that last year's 50th anniversary celebration focused more on Jet than it did on him. He did get a cool CGI short, though. Also, I like him. That matters, too. This characterization and look for Godzilla would last until the end of the original Showa-era run, though slight tweaks were made to the design, like giving him a glare. This is my favorite look for this suit. He's still cute, but looks like he could still beat you up. If you take Godzilla canon seriously, which, if you do, please find help, the television series Zone Fighter directly follows Megalon. This was Toho's most blatant Ultraman-like. He's got a color timer and everything. And they carried over the dynamic of Godzilla being friends with a giant silver superhero. I also did a video on this one, check it out. One of the more unexpected things influenced by this movie was actually Neon Genesis Evangelion. I remember being so excited noticing this when I was just getting into the mecha genre. You see, Hideaki Anno is a giant nerd. So in one episode, there's an out-of-control robot named Jet Alone. A clear reference to the original Red Alone name that Jet was originally going to have. It's even got the same color scheme. I like knowing things. In 1976, Godzilla vs. Megalon was picked up for distribution in the United States by CinemaShares. CinemaShares also put out a 4-page comic. It notably gets the plot wrong and calls Jet Jaguar Robot Man, as did their trailer. As an aside, I love the phrasing of a once proud civilization now has to place their trusts and hopes in Godzilla. Like they're embarrassed that they have to.
A once proud civilization now had to place its trust and hope in Godzilla and his powerful ally, Robot Man.
Check out the video I did on it, by the way. It's part of a side project where I go through every Western Godzilla comic for fun. Anyways, when CinemaShares went under, opportunistic video labels just assumed that meant that the movie was in public domain. So throughout the 80s, it became the most re-released movie in the franchise. You can find tons of bootleg VHS tapes. Toho Kingdom actually has a whole page covering them. It's the spread of these tapes and the movie's weird legality that I think really cemented it as a cult classic, more so than other Godzilla films for a while. This misconception about the movie's legal status was so widespread that it was included in one of the DVD releases for Mystery Science Theater. It had to get recalled, and future releases now have the giant Gila monster instead. My favorite detail about this being that they included a bonus feature that lampshaded the whole situation.
I'm just a little upset that you failed to take the time to clear the rights for the Japanese giant lizard monster movie.
Unlike Katakawa, who let the gang continue to riff on the Gamera movies, Toho doesn't have a sense of humor, and God forbid people make fun of Godzilla ever, so both this and the Sea Monster episode will likely never see another release. Oh well.
Oh, did he eat Wonder Bread? Guess so.
So yeah, Godzilla vs. Megalon. Is it the best Godzilla movie? Yes, absolutely. I mean, no, definitely not. It's definitely not the best Godzilla movie, and technically not a good movie, but if you're watching something and having fun, isn't that what matters? Like one internet comedy man once put it, that is the meaning of life. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Here is a special shout out to top patrons, who get videos like this one a little bit earlier. Greninja Zack, Toku Simb, Old Metal Possum, Solid Lib, Dinosaurana, Kidorian, Scooter Jit, Lobotomy Blues, Cool Bell Zero, Johnny Hedgewolf, Eric Guzda, Janos Firewalker, Easterman, Manila Fan, Sampai, Navik15, Jacob Hinch, Dude Bro, Alistair Gilmore, Seamus Kelly, Anonymous Euronymous 1349, Fujoshi Urinal, Brazio, Mulan Nguyen, Irrelevant 402, Hey I'm Mooney, Krazak53, Queer Kaiju, Chronicler Waba, Alcoholic Alligators, Ryan Santa Cruz, Avok Robot, The Antagonist, Godzilla Rich, It's God Z, An Actual Dimetrodon, CMG, Red Comet Harry, and Marpzilla. Thank you all very much.